Okay, guess we're ready to kick things off here. All right, it is Tuesday, June 22nd at 7 p.m. and we're about to begin our June meeting of the National Natural Resource and Environmental Commission meeting for the City of South Pasadena. Okay, I am going to read our public advisory. The City Council chambers will not be open to the public. And our notice on public participation and accessibility will be read next. Pursuant to Section 3 of Executive Order N-29-20 issued by Governor Newsom on March 17th, 2020, the regular meeting of the Natural Resource and Environmental Commission for June 22nd, 2021 will be conducted remotely and held by Zoom video conference. Please be advised that pursuant to the executive order and to ensure the health and safety of the public by limiting human contact that could spread the COVID-19 virus, the council chambers will not be open for the meeting. Commissioners will be participating remotely and will not be physically present in the council chambers. To maximize public safety while still maintaining transparency and public access, members of the public can observe the meeting via Zoom in one of the three methods below. The Zoom meeting information, the webinar ID is 871-3299-4112. So you can go to the Zoom website and click on the following link that is noted in our agenda packet, or you can listen to the meeting by calling 1-669-900-6833 and entering the Zoom meeting ID and passcode when prompted to do so. And for additional Zoom assistance with telephone audio, you may find your local number at the link provided. Important note that members of the public may access the meeting to observe the meeting's proceedings. However, at this time, there is no live real-time participation by members of the public. If you would like to make a public comment, you can do so. You can make a comment on an agenda item. Members of the public may submit their comments in writing for consideration by emailing comments or questions to NREC public comment at southpasadenaca.gov. Public comments must be received by 12 p.m. on June 22nd or whatever the date of the meeting is you wish to comment on, to ensure adequate time to compile and post. Public comment portion of this email is limited to 250 words. Please make sure to indicate your name, what agenda item you are submitting public comment on, or if it is a general public comment, and clearly state if you wish for your comment to be read during the meeting. I will now read the South Pasadena Natural Resources and Environmental Statement of Civility. As your appointed governing board, we will treat each other, members of the public, and the city employees with patience, civility, and courtesy as a model of the same behavior we wish to reflect in South Pasadena for the conduct of all city business and community participation. The decisions made tonight will be for the benefit of the South Pasadena community and not for personal gain. Okay, I've already called the meeting to order, so we can now do roll call.
Thank you, Chair Jones. Okay, I will now do roll call. Commissioner Rona Bortz.
Here.
Commissioner Michelle Hammond.
Here.
Commissioner Casey Love.
Here.
Commissioner Bill Kelly.
Here.
Commissioner Michael Siegel.
Here.
Vice Chair Madeline DeGiorgi.
Present.
And Chair Amy Jones.
Here.
We have our council liaison, Mayor Pro Tem Michael Cacciati.
Here.
And staff present, we have today with us Ted Gerber, Deputy Public Works Director.
Here.
Garrett Crawford, Public Works Operations Manager.
Present.
And myself, RP Kasparian, Water Conservation and Sustainability Analyst. That concludes the roll call. Thank you.
Okay, I'll now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could unmute yourself so we can all do it together. And succinctly this time, everybody, come on. Just kidding, I know it's impossible. Okay, put your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the United
United
States of America
America. For
and to the
the
republic
republic
for which it
which
stands, one nation,
Under
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 God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty and justice for
for
all.
all. Good job, everybody. Okay, I already read the public comments portion. So that brings us to public comments. Do we have any public comments for today?
We have no public comments for today.
Okay. So now we will move on to our first item, which is discussion item on the review of our city cool roof and parking lot codes. And I am not sure, we have some guests today, so I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Yes, we do have guests today, and just a background information for everybody. So the commission, along with staff, completed the Green Action Plan, which was adopted by council back in November of 2019. One of our main goals of that plan was to mitigate the heat island effect in the city. So one of the actions, or two of the actions really, that we have under that goal in order to address this issue in the city is to review the city's current cool roof codes and standards, as well as the parking lot codes and standards. So today we have here with us, today, we have here several representatives from TransTech who are contracted by the city. We have Dennis Tarango, Isla Jefferson, and Jeffrey Cow. And they are the experts on the cool roof. So hopefully we can get a really great discussion going. Mainly this is more of like a Q&A if the commissioners have any questions about how the city is handling those cool roof standards and enforcing them and all of that. So I just want to go ahead and if you'd like, Dennis, you can say hello.
Yes. How you doing? So I'm from TransTech Engineers. TransTech has been providing the city of South Pasadena with building and safety services for over 25 years. So currently I'm a building official. So part of my job is to run the building department and enforce California construction codes as adopted in the Title 24 state codes. I have with me Isla Jefferson, which is another building official, and Jeffrey Cow. Jeffrey's a building official, but he also manages our plan review. So he does a lot of the development plan review for the building and safety department. Currently, we've adopted the 2019 California codes, which include the California Energy Code, which provide prescriptive requirements for cool roofs. Although South Pasadena, you may know, is in climate zone 9. So a lot of our residential developments are exempt from the cool roof requirements, although our commercial buildings still need to comply with the prescriptive requirements for cool roofs, unless they provide some kind of alternative measure. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
So I figured we would start just so everyone gets on the same page with just the general question of what is a cool roof and how does that get triggered? Why would anyone need to install the cool roof?
So a cool roof is it's only actually one component of the prescriptive measures from the state in the energy code. A cool roof has a reflective property typically. It has, sometimes it's a density property that allows it to reflect heat. Although the state does have other measures that you can trade off for a cool roof. Cool roof is just one of the components that allows either an altered building, if you're doing an addition or a new building, to comply with the energy requirements.
Thank you. And can you tell us a little something about how South Pasadena specifically is handling this standard, or is it being enforced? Do we run into a lot of properties that require it?
Well, being predominantly residential community, we don't get a lot of cool roofs in South Pasadena. Being in climate zone 9, it is exempt. So most of the commercial properties that either replaced more than 50% of their roof or 2,000 square foot or more of their existing roof would be required to comply with the prescriptive measures of the energy code, which would include cool roof. And then all new commercial buildings, we call them non-residential buildings, would be either required to provide a cool roof or an alternative measure that would comply. So some developments choose to not install a cool roof, but alternatively choose to install additional insulation. So the way that the code is written, there's a prescriptive measure that you can comply as a package. You do certain measures and you comply with energy code, or you can run what we call energy calculations, which allow you to offset, roof with additional insulation or some other measure. So we typically verify that in the permitting process. For new buildings, it's during the plan review process. For re-roofs, it's typically during the inspection process. We will ask for the cool roof rating council report whenever you're installing a cool roof or you're installing a new commercial building roof to verify that they're in compliance.
I have a question, Dennis.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, RP, did I interrupt you?
No, I
Okay.
was just going to say, and now if there's anyone who would like to ask questions, please go for it.
Oh, I was just going to ask, we do have a lot of multifamily residential, big apartment buildings and such. Are those also exempt? And if so, why? Because a lot of them have, a lot of roof space.
Yeah, so multifamily, if it's not a hotel or a motel, if it's a multifamily condo or apartment, it is exempt. California exempts them. So these are provisions provided by the state that mandate, what we enforce. Although we are allowed to amend what was provided to us by the state, but we would have to show that there's something unique. The state says that, the provisions of Title 24, we can make them more restrictive, but we have to provide findings, why the climate in South Pasadena is such that we need to provide additional requirements.
And I have one follow-up question. Why are we exempt? I mean, it seems like living in the climate we do that it just doesn't make any sense to me. We're mostly in a desert.
Yeah, California, they designate certain areas of the state to certain climate zones, and South Pasadena falls under what we call climate zone 9. So the exemption actually changes when you go to climate zone 10. So we just fall under a climate zone that has an exemption for residential roofs required to be cool roofs.
I have
Commissioner Kelly?
Yeah, sorry to break in. I have a series of questions about this, and I'm one of the people on the commission that has raised this repeatedly. So could you just clarify one more time how residential structures are treated when they are built anew, if they are expanded, like an addition is put on, and then if they are re-roofed? I was a little hazy with your explanation.
So
By the city, in other words.
all residential roofs in South Pasadena, because they're in climate zone 9,
Yeah,
are exempt from the
okay,
requirement. But if
all
we're-
right. You said something about replacing more than 2,000 square feet. So
That would
that doesn't apply here,
Right, that would be what we call non-residential. So anything
non-residential.
that a residential, yeah. And what falls under non-residential as well is anything that's considered high-rise.
Mhm.
So a high-rise building is not considered a residential building, as well as a hotel and a motel.
Okay, so in terms of these standards, they are designed to reduce the energy use load of buildings.
Right.
But if you put conventional roofing on a roof in a neighborhood versus cool roofing, how does that change the urban heat island effect?
And I'll be honest, the intent wasn't, for cool roofs to mitigate any heat island
Yeah,
effect.
I know that,
Yeah.
but I'm asking
Um,
what your opinion is on that, or what you know about that.
I would say, just based on what the intent of the cool roof is to do, I don't think it has a significant effect,
And why would that be?
because it's designed to mitigate the transfer of heat into the space below, rather than absorb the heat, if that makes any sense. I think measures for heat island effect that I've seen work, like in parking lots, they're more to absorb the heat instead of reflecting it off, which technically what the cool roofing material is supposed to do.
Okay, so if you use conventional roofing versus cool roof, uh, you're saying then that it would add to the urban heat island effect? If I put non-cool roof asphalt shingles, black, on top of my house, would that add to the urban heat island effect more than if I put cool roof shingles on?
So, I mean, to be honest, I'm not, as Arby said, I'm not the expert in cool roofs.
Okay.
I'm the expert in enforcing California building codes. But from what I know of how cool roofs work, the intent isn't to mitigate any of the heat island effect. It's more to, reduce the transfer of heat through into conditioned space, which then reduces the energy consumption.
Okay, well, if you have a cool roof, then it reduces the cooling load in a house.
Absolutely.
So how does the extra cooling load of not having a cool roof impact the urban heat island effect? Those air conditioners are generally at street level. They're next door to neighbors, dumping heat, 2-3 feet off the ground.
Yeah, I believe cool roof is one of the measures you can do to reduce your energy consumption. There's many that we use, radiant barriers in the attic, reflecting heat out of the attic, additional insulation. So it's just one of the tools that we use to reduce energy consumption within a conditioned space.
Okay. And I had one other question, then I'll pass it along. Thank you for helping me. That question is, there are a lot of cities in California, as I understand it, that have gone above and beyond the CEC building code requirements for energy efficiency and require cool roofing for re-roofs and for additions and for new residential construction in areas where they may not require it at the state level. Do you know anything about those cities, why they have done it, or what kind of results they've achieved through it in terms of energy use and addressing the urban heat island effect?
So, one of the benefits of hiring a company like ours is that we actually serve in tons of cities. Actually, more than 50 cities in California, we provide services to, and many of those building and safety services too. So I personally haven't adopted any provisions above what's required in the energy code for energy compliance. I know that some cities have, but those cities typically don't make it a mandate. Those cities actually provide incentives to developers. So I know a city specifically that allows developers to increase the amount of units that they get, reduce the amount of parking, things that help them, build them a little larger than they can to meet the zoning. And a trade-off is if you implement some of these energy saving features like cool roof, some of them are, additional insulation, things like that. So I personally haven't adopted any of those. I haven't had any of my cities have that discussion, but I know a few cities that have, especially, I know you guys, everybody want to talk about the parking lot requirement for the city. Some of the cities that I've worked with, they put provisions for additional landscaping in parking lots of a certain size. Also, required for trees with large canopies to shade some of the parking lots. But those provisions aren't typically adopted in the building code. They're actually adopted in the zoning code, and they're typically offsetting. So they're trying to incentivize developers to incorporate those designs in their projects. In doing that, they allow them to have some kind of zoning incentive.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Casey? Commissioner Wall?
Sure, thanks. I was just curious on the non-residential side, how many buildings meet the requirement in South Pasadena, just based on the current area?
I don't have that number. We don't have a lot of non-residential buildings, and typically you would see cool roof requirements, not particularly in new construction, because what we found that because the state allows not just the prescriptive requirements, but they also allow a performance approach. So a building can comply with the envelope, we call it the envelope requirements of the energy code by increasing the insulation instead of doing cool roof. Cool roof tends to be a little bit difficult for developers to achieve because it typically requires a more expensive material, and a lot of times it requires a third-party approval process. That scares off a lot of new development from installing a cool roof. So I couldn't give you the amount of non-residential buildings we have with cool roofs. Where you tend to see them typically is when somebody's re-roofing an existing building. Whenever they're doing more than 50% of their non-residential building or more than 2,000 square feet, they'll come in and install a cool roof.
I see. So yeah, I'm looking at the flyer here. So 2,000 square feet corresponds to, what is that? Half a dozen buildings in the city, maybe, or?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. We don't see very many.
Yeah.
Not a significant amount.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis, I was just curious. I did re-roof because our roof was in poor condition and we were putting on solar, and we actually ended up using cool roof compliant tiles, and the cost was no greater. So I'm just curious if I'm looking at this Los Angeles Department of Water and power rebate sheet they have for cool roofs. And it pretty much confirms that a lot of the roof tiles, the asphalt tiles that are compliant are no more expensive. So I guess my question would be, what does it take to incentivize that in our probably be in our building code, so that we can get more people who are re-roofing or doing new residential or multifamily or new commercial buildings. There's a lot of development happening in South Pasadena right now. So yeah, I mean, I just feel like there's a missed opportunity, especially considering that it's not really an additional cost. I mean, some people might balk at the aesthetic, but there's a lot of buildings where you don't even see the roof. So yeah, just wondering what your take is on that.
Where I've seen them effective, ordinances that require cool roofs are, like I said, in the zoning code. In the building code, it's very difficult because we have to provide findings to the state. The state requires us to provide findings, and they have to actually agree with those findings. I don't know any city that's actually made that part of their construction code adoption, the building code adoption. But I have seen several do it in their zoning code. So I could see that the city either do some kind of rebate program or some kind of zoning incentive program that would encourage either re-roofs or new developments or redevelopments to install cool roofs.
I had a question about zoning. So you said that South Pasadena was in zone 9. What does that mean? Like, what qualifies our city to be in that zone versus, like, so what's the difference between zone 9 and zone 10, for example?
Well, that again is not my expertise, but typically it's, yeah, your I would assume it's something like your average temperature, your location. You know, most of San Gabriel Valley is either climate zone 8 or climate zone 9. You don't really typically go up to a higher climate zone until you get a little further away to the desert areas.
You can Google it for the map. There's it's geographic.
Yeah, it's geographic. So I think it's part of the handout that ARPI send out, which I think it shows climate zones in there.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on this? Go ahead, Commissioner.
I had one further question, which is not a cool roofing question per se, but it deals with the urban heat island effect and building permit reviews or plan reviews and permits. What about paving of lots? I'm talking about residential. I know that increases the heat because my next door neighbor just paved their backyard. Anyway, the temperature is quite a bit hotter when I step out the door as a result of that, I'm pretty sure. But is there a look at that and how that affects the urban heat island when a resident comes in and they want to expand, or they want to add a carport or a new garage, and they want to make the driveway bigger and more parking spaces in the back of their house?
Mm-hmm.
How is that viewed?
So unfortunately, all of those provisions are actually handled in the planning department. So okay. How much hardscape, how much landscape, the location of buildings, how much building you can have on your lot.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
That's all regulated by the planning department in the zoning code. So yeah,
you get a plan, and
they tell me, what they approve, and I tell them how they can build it, basically.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I did have one
I have
further
a follow-up
question. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Law.
Sorry. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just realized that we have 2 flyers that are related to roofs exclusively but the agenda item refers to parking lots also. Are we being asked to consider specific questions about both subjects?
Well, I think we were going to look at both. We've just been focused on cool roofs. Yes, I have a lot to say about parking lots too. So, but I don't know if that's part of this discussion with TransTech or if that's separate. Maybe RB can clarify.
Yeah, so I know that Dennis here is with buildings, so mainly cool roofs. But I know that if you have any insight on the parking lots in South Pasadena, please feel free to share, and we can have a commission discussion about that. And then if you'd like to give staff direction on any further discussions that you'd like to have at another meeting, or if you'd like to, pull up some other codes or ordinances, then we can take it from there. But you're more than welcome to have that discussion.
Okay, Commissioner Law, did you have anything you want to say about parking lots, or would you like me to kick that off?
Please go ahead. I'm totally uninformed.
Okay. Well, this happens to be something I'm very passionate about and I've done a lot of research on. So a few years back, before we started on our green action plan, I looked at our standards for the city and compared them to a smaller city in the Palm Desert, looked at Los Angeles code as well as Portland's. Obviously, Portland's a totally different climate, but they have some pretty progressive parking lot codes, mainly about planting and shading, because that's my area of expertise. And I did see that while we have a decent code, we have no enforcement, nor do we have a lot of incentives for people who are repaving or doing building renovations and repaving commercial buildings with big parking lots attached. There's virtually, I mean, so our code states one tree for every 4 spaces. Oh wait, no, that's LA, sorry. Yeah, ours is 1 to 4 as well. 50% coverage in 10 years. But then I did a little further digging and found that many of our big parking lots in South Pasadena are woefully unshaded. Anywhere from 16 spaces to a tree to, in some of our grocery store areas, and then our district offices was 1 tree for 43 spaces. The whole ACE complex was 222 spaces with 3 interior trees. So, I mean, I have this whole thing I put together a couple of years ago. I'll send it to RP so you guys can look through it. Yeah, I would like to sort of figure out a good way to incentivize property owners, developers to look into getting more planting in parking lots, shading of parking lots, and infiltration in parking lots, which can be accomplished with more landscaping. So that's all I have to say. But that's just to kick off the discussion. And I would love to hear what Dennis has to say.
Unfortunately, the portion I'm my job is to enforce doesn't have very many provisions. So the California Green Code or the California Building Code or Energy Code for that matter really doesn't have any requirements for shading in the building code. That would be something that would be more enforced in the zoning code. And we do serve quite a few cities, and some of the cities that do have measures for parking lots to mitigate the heat island effect, they typically require additional shade trees, but they also sometimes tie that in with an incentive for reduced parking lot or parking stalls. So if you install a certain amount of landscaping, you can reduce the percentage of required parking stalls. So I've seen that work. Parking's always a contentious discussion with the planning department when you're proposing a development or repaving for that matter.
Agreed. Does anyone have any other questions or comments about parking lots and planting or any other measures for reducing? Commissioner.
I frequently see a lot of solar panel structures that are built above parking lots that are very nicely shaded and obviously have another function too. And I think that might be a really, a good thing to try to encourage in some of our, obviously not the huge parking lots, but some of the smaller ones. Although trees are great too, but like, you know what I mean? We could sort of figure out a way to get some of the solar panels on top of the parking structures. I think that would be really helpful.
Definitely. Anybody else? Any of the other commissioners have comments? Commissioner Kelly?
Well, there is something that's developing called cool paving, and it's been used by the city of Los Angeles in a couple of demonstrations. One of them downtown, I think one out in San Fernando Valley. And certainly with a new lot or even perhaps a repaving, they repaved streets, with it in Los Angeles. I think that would be another, thing to look at to try to incentivize. I think in terms of not so much parking lots, but streets, in Spain, there are many streets where they have essentially like canopies over them that we ran into. These are very similar, to shade sales. They're anchored to either buildings going across the street or to lamp posts, things like that. And they provide quite a bit of relief from the urban heat island effect. So I think there are a variety of options, but probably trees would be the easiest and most acceptable, I would think. And I don't know that you have to actually, how much parking space you have to lose to plant trees. In some cases, you probably would lose some. In others, situations, you may not actually have to give up parking spaces. When I think of some of the lots around town.
And I do think as you said, Commissioner Kelly, like as we increase our ability to rely less on cars, maybe the parking lot space requirements will be reduced by planning, and maybe we can fit more landscaping in general if there's less of a parking requirement. Is there anybody else that would like to comment on Commissioner DeGiorgi?
I just have one more question for Dennis. So you mentioned something about we could apply these ideas to the zoning code. So for example, would that be like under like South Pasadena's zoning code, Article 3, site planning and general development standards, would it list like parking and loading, general property development and use standards? Would it be something we would add around there, or?
Yeah, so the cities that we contract to that have these provisions, they're in their, typically their design guidelines
Okay,
for parking lots. Yes.
okay, perfect, thank you.
We already have in our development code, under, let's see, 36.330.040 are the landscape location requirements for parking lots. And then 36.330.030 has some landscape plan requirements. Yeah, I'd have to go back and look at it, but we do have it in our existing planning code, if I'm not incorrect. RP, can you verify this? It's been a while since I've looked at it. These are old notes, so I'm not 100% sure.
I can definitely look into it and get back to the commission.
Okay,
Your time,
okay,
I don't know off the top of my head.
okay. Yeah, we do have, we
It looks
have,
like there's some landscaping standards here under
Yeah.
division 36.330, as we were saying.
yeah,
A few other things,
So-
but if we needed to update anything, at least now we know where to go.
I guess what my summary was from a few years back, and it's just now starting to come back to me, is that basically we don't have a lot of things that actually trigger it. So that's part of the problem. And so figuring out ways in which we can trigger and incentivize the implementation of the code is what we really need. It doesn't have any teeth right now. So I think that's probably some next steps that we need to take. Look at it and, you know, update it if necessary, but also try to figure out ways to incentivize more projects to actually incorporate it. Commissioner Kelly, did you have another
No.
comment?
No.
Oh, okay. Anybody else?
Maybe, sorry, one more if I could.
Yeah, of course.
So if you did want to go above and beyond, what are the best rationales for exceeding the state requirements?
So for the building code adoption, it's got to be one of three thresholds. It has to be something that topographically is significant to South Pasadena. It has to be based on our geographic requirements, or something climatic. So that there's three conditions that you can adopt or amend the building code requirements to be more restrictive. In this case, yeah, something would have to be justified why South Pasadena is so unique that we'd have to increase our requirements for cool roof. So yeah, that would be something we'd have to really look into. That's why I say that requirement doesn't exist in the municipal code or in the zoning code. So for cool roofs, I would say it may be something better incentivized rather than required. That might be an easier approach if we're looking to get something approved.
Dennis, do you see any possibility that they're going to maybe incorporate other zones like zone 9 into the standard, since we're right on the cusp?
I haven't heard anything. Myself and Isla, who's also in the meeting, are part of the International Code Council sustainability governing committee. So we actually work with a committee that writes the international green building codes and international energy codes. which actually aren't adopted for California. California, we're much more advanced than the rest of the country. But I haven't heard of additional requirements for climate zones coming out. Although the Energy Commission is every 3 years adopting new provisions, so it's getting more and more restrictive. So it wouldn't surprise me if cool roofs are incorporated in more zones.
Hey, Dennis, can I just make a clarification?
Sure. This is Jeff. Yes.
Yeah, I guess our topic has been focused on cool roof, but the Building Standard Commission, also the Energy Commission, wasn't specifically focusing on that particular component, and simply because they wanted to be able to offer different type of construction material, not to dictate the type of roofing. So they offer a variety of different ways where you could cool the building down. And for example, you have provisions of radiant barriers that would also block heat. That and additionally, you can provide high performance attic insulation. So what the industry have found that the amount of money you spend to increase the level of insulation and radiant barrier is more effective than putting money on the roofing itself. And so that's why the roofing is a prescriptive requirement, not a mandatory requirement, because it allows the builder, the designer, has the different options to choose how they could achieve a better performing building. And keep in mind, the whole energy code is written to keep the cost of air conditioning down. You know, the using of the consumption of energy, but the goal is not to reduce the heat, you know, into the air. So if there are ways to reduce the energy consumption within the house, they will likely to open more options to the designer. So they're not specifically looking at, you know, adding the cool roof. So I don't foresee in the future that we will have more restrictive cool roof requirement. They may have more, they may demand for higher performing cool roof. So for example, they have another number called the cool roof index, where the reflectance and then the emittance has a big gap. That means it's super performing. They may target it for that type of product if cool roof is being used. But I don't think they will actually make it into a mandatory requirement. And I said that simply because cool roof requirement has been in the code for at least 9 years. And I don't see that make it into the mandatory part because, again, they wanted to give options for them to use different material, different methods of achieving the same goal. So if that would, you know, clarify further about why cool roof hasn't been picking up tractions.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, unless anybody has any further questions for our guests, I think we are done with our discussion. All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Jeffrey and Isla.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, so moving on, we have an action item. The tree ordinance, as I understand, well, we did pass it and move it on to council, has come back to us. There's been a few more changes, and I think Garrett's going to run us through those and explain a few things for us.
Yeah, well, thanks everybody. It's great seeing everyone. So yeah, I think 6 or so months ago, you all had recommended the changes to council, and the the public hearing was moved several times due to agenda management. So when it was looked at to go to council, there were some questions. So we needed to make some adjustments. And then during that time, we also wanted to clarify the tree replacements based on the tree taper and diameter. So it was actually fortuitous that we were able to get those changes into that we had missed during the first go round. So we had adjusted the protected shrub to say tree-like. That caused some confusion. So we were asked to strike that change. So you'll see that reflected in the packet. We only put in the sections that we changed in the latter half of the staff report where it actually has the code. So all the original changes are in red. And then the strikeout was in track changes. So you'll see that. And then the additional changes are to the tree replacement. So when it was, between 10 and 18 inches, it was this. The code didn't say then 19 to whatever. So we cleaned that up so it actually is mathematically correct and easier to understand. There was no changes to the financial hardship portion. That stayed the same. So other than that, that's the two changes that are new that you all haven't seen before is the going back to not having tree-like in the protected shrub, and then adding the or clarifying the tree replacements based on diameters and tapers. So if that's kind of the short and skinny of it, if you all vote to approve it, we will get it on the council agenda before I go on paternity leave, I promise.
Well, congratulations, first of all. No idea. And secondly, when do you go? When do you leave?
If the due date is in late August, so we have some time.
Okay, great. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Garrett? Yeah, I think we've probably become thoroughly familiar with this.
Yeah, no, I just, because they were some fairly significant changes, I wanted you all to be able to talk about it, discuss it, make sure that you're okay with it and the recommendation still stands before we take it back. So that's why you're seeing it all one more time, just to make sure the public and the commission, who are definitely invested in this, have an opportunity to discuss it.
Okay, well, I feel like it's pretty comprehensive and has sort of satisfied all of our initial feedback to you. Does anyone have any further comments or concerns about it? If not, then do I have a motion to approve it with the new changes?
Really quick, Garrett. So everything like at the end where it's in blue and red, blue and red is everything that's going to be included, right? It's only the strike throughs that are removed, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's it. And I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, can I get a roll call, please?
Absolutely. All right, so motion by Vice Chair DeGiorgi and second by Commissioner Siegel to recommend approval of the tree code to City Council. Commissioner Rona Bortz.
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Casey Law.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Siegel.
Yes.
Vice Chair DeGiorgi.
Yes.
Amy Jones.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously 7-0. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your continued attention and detail to this matter. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Garrett.
Thank you, Garrett. Good
Have a
work.
good evening.
You
You
too.
too.
Good night.
If we don't
Thanks.
see you before you leave, good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're now on to the approval of our meeting minutes from May. Our meeting of May 25th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes, please?
Actually, I had a question on the minutes. Can you hear me okay? Oh.
Sorry, I should have asked that first. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
I did just the item about the topic that I'm excited about, but it's the language is consistent with what's already taking place. So I think the language says that we would like, sorry, I didn't pull it up here, that we, I'm pulling it up just a second here. Apologies. I think the language says, wait, sorry, where is it here? Yeah, okay, sorry. So the city council, let's see, staff reports to city council that staff will work to establish a tool lending library to assist with the outreach and education. So I think that's effectively already taking place. And I think some of the things we discussed were more along the lines of there would be, the commission would has the intention of actually finding financial support and more direct means of supporting the tool lending library that are new. And I wasn't sure how to capture that, but that was my understanding of our discussion at the last meeting.
I think when we made the motion, that was not included, but now that you're bringing it to my attention, and I apologize, I missed this. We did not, we also wanted to include, yeah, it's in there, sorry, enforcement on property owners instead of gardeners and landscapers. Sorry, it is in there. But to your point, Commissioner Law, what specifically were you thinking? Because I think the idea was that the city can't really, doesn't have the resources to like engage too much with, I mean, they can help with promotion and outreach, but I'm not sure that they can provide beyond the rebates and the trade-ins that are already exist. I don't know that the city has the resources to provide financial assistance. I think that the burden would be on the property owners. I don't know. Does anybody have any comments on this? Because I don't want to misconstrue what you're asking for, Commissioner Law.
Yeah, I appreciate the asking. Okay, well, yeah, perhaps this is sufficient. I guess I had hoped I thought there was something a little more definitive than what's already been agreed to by the library, essentially. So the library staff have, or basically started to implement the tool lending library. So we had discussed, potentially supporting that through the city, through other branches of the city government, through public works. We talked about potentially working to purchase specific pieces of equipment that would be managed by the public works department or the library. So that's not explicitly mentioned. So it's not beyond what the library is already planning to do.
Right, so we talked about how the staff would work to see the feasibility of doing such a thing, but beyond promising anything beyond that is not something we would be able to do, which is what we discussed at our last meeting. Yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kelly.
As I recall, the idea there was to somehow obtain some of the equipment, and it wasn't clear how we would do that, but you know, there could be different avenues that could be pursued. You know, to be able to lend out the electric equipment so people could, you know, get some experience with it and see if it was something they would want to purchase themselves. You know,
Right.
I think that was, and possibly gardeners, you know, who work in the city could do that. That's what I recall being discussed.
Yeah, and I think that's a tough thing to include in the ordinance. I think that's more like an action item that we can pursue, but in terms of like the actual wording of the ordinance, I don't know that that is something that really makes sense to include, but I don't know. I would defer to somebody who actually pens the ordinances on that matter. And our legal department, I suppose.
In the staff report, we committed to basically a research effort. We didn't have any city funds that we could commit to any program right now, not part of this year's budget. So yeah, as it's implemented now in the staff report, it's a research effort essentially for feasible for incentives. If that's helpful.
Okay, if that's where we feel we can put it, then that's good. We can move to approve these minutes.
Okay. So is that a motion?
I will
Commissioner
move to approve these minutes.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Law has approved the meeting minutes for May 25th, 2021. And who seconded that? Sorry. Oh, Commissioner Hammond. Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Rona Bortz. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to approve the minutes by Commissioner Law, seconded by Commissioner Hammond. Commissioner Rona Bortz.
Yes.
Commissioner Michelle Hammond.
Yes.
Commissioner Casey Law.
Yes.
Commissioner Bill Kelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Michael Siegel.
Yes.
Vice Chair DeGiorgi.
Yes.
Chair Amy Jones.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Sorry.
You didn't
Let
take
me-
it at 12.
Let me, you're on mic.
Oh, sorry about that.
Just wanted to let you know. Okay, where are we? Sorry, getting back to my agenda. All right, so we've approved the minutes. We're on to communications. Mayor Pro Tem Cacciati, do you have any comments tonight?
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Council approved the budget last week. I made a motion towards the end. There was about a little over $100,000 surplus. And I made a motion to take maybe 50 or 75,000 for tree replacement, tree planting. After a long discussion, we put aside 50,000. And again, that the budget's been approved. But if you want to, and some of these issues you're talking about, we're going to have, I've pushed for this with the prior city manager who told us to wait till the new city manager came on, is we'll have a strategic planning meeting. We're going to get a consultant on to lead the effort like we've done for most of the years, except during COVID. And I think if you have some ideas during that time, you could advocate for them because it's what it is. We're going to try to, focus on our, whether it's 3, 5, 10 priorities for the city with all the commissions, the most of any city I represent on the AQMD, by the way. We can't do everything every commission wants. So we've got to pick and choose. So again, that's your opportunity to really help us push for some of these environmental issues like the tree canopy. And ironically, right after that, this past Monday, I was volunteering at Holy Family's Giving Bank on Monday morning. Just as I got there, thank God I didn't take Oak because everybody's rushing to Oak Street. I see all the volunteers. So I rush over there, 7:30 a.m. And one of our large oak trees on Oak between Fremont and Fair Oaks, half the tree, basically, the branches were huge, some like 100-plus-year-old oak tree, fell across the street. It struck the back of a car that was coming under it, just missed the driver, hit the back left portion of the car, crushing part of it. He pulled over. I immediately called police, Public Works. They were out there for 4 hours. And then they called West Coast Arborists. It literally took that much time. 2 officers blocking the road. One ultimately left. He was there for Officer Burgos, and the female officer. He was there for about 2.5 hours. She was there for an hour. Public Works was there the whole time. They got there. I think it was Ruben, was a beast on the chainsaw. And then WCA showed up, and they were there at least an hour and a half. And they brought one of their huge trucks and a huge container and a earth moving equipment and their bucket trucks. And they were out of there by 11, so 4 hours. That one half of a tree that covered the street, basically for 3 hours. And then we put in cones as we moved part of it. And they filled up that 40-foot, container in their trucks. I'll show pictures of the council meeting, but it just shows you what one tree can do to our staff. And I'm curious how much the cost is going to be. I know WCA is on contract, Ted, but I'm not sure. This might be one of these extra little things that come out there for a couple hours with several staff members, bucket trucks, truck loading trucks, earth moving equipment, and our staff and our police. So as we're talking about the aging tree canopy, this is a really big issue in the tree. Thank God nobody was hurt or killed. Next, let's see. Today I took our city manager, public works director, fire department chief, police chief, several others, residents in my district on a tour of the district. And Ted, thanks for being up there at the Garfield Reservoir showing us around. Great little tour, very quick. Then we toured around showing the conditions of our streets and also our tree, again, the tree canopy, showed areas where trees have died or we've taken out and just sitting there vacant for the last 6 to 8 months. I think Shahid said we had something like 11,000 trees in the parkways and things like that. And I think he said, Ted, I can't remember, we replaced maybe 250 a year, but at that rate, it would take us do the math. That's like 4 a year, 250 times 4 is what, 1,000 times 40? A lot. So you may want to comment at that later. This past month, I've been at AQMD meetings for you, representing you in the 34 cities, Gold Line construction, everything's on track. A lot of crossings we're talking about in the cities, but everything's doing well. Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy met last night for 3 hours, 6:30, 9:30 was there representing us, voting for the budget. So as part of the budget, some good things for our environment. After literally 18 years of encouraging, pushing the police, passing policies in 2005, I proposed for low emission vehicle purchase policy. The chief, with changing conditions in our public, has now proposed a new way to fund for vehicles and also looking at hybrid and electric vehicles. That is in the budget. I'm pushing him for electric. He'll come back to a proposal to council. Hopefully he'll push with us for all the electric as we change our fleets over to comply with governor on our own green action plan. I've asked Public Works, and she's done it. I've asked them to talk with Edison because you just can't get electric vehicles. You've got to work, and I found this out the last 6 months with our warehouse rule in the South Coast AQMD and my meetings with Edison International, that it may take for us to convert a warehouse over to electric, the trucks, the yard trucks, everything solar, it might take a year to go through that process. So I had Shahid immediately call Edison. Edison's got a program called Charge Ready. They work with businesses and it's in, and apparently we'll have a meeting with Shahid next week and staff. And he says Edison may pay for the upgrade of our system at City Hall. So I want to turn the police parking lot into whether it's 8 to 10, 12 electric vehicle chargers, possibly fire in our regular area. We've got 2 minor level 1 chargers there. They would hopefully, as he's talking about, Ted may know this, I'm not sure of the details, but they may do the whole saw cutting, installation of the infrastructure, and then we would just pay for the electric vehicle supply equipment. And I'm probably going to ask Bill to restart that energy efficiency solar committee, because I'd love to have a solar array carport basically over our parking lots and charging for free. So we're looking at that, and hopefully in the meetings with Edison, that's true. Edison's also got to upgrade their local infrastructure. As we found out again, when we're near a warehouse, they say, hey, and I basically set a meeting with Edison 2 months ago to say, can you, before our vote at AQMD, can you accommodate all these trucks converting to electric, heavy duty, medium duty? They said, if it's phased in, we can, but we want to work with you. When you get the permits, we want to know where they are so we can upgrade our infrastructure and our grid. So you're gonna have to do the same in South Pasadena. Can you imagine our neighborhoods if everybody got an electric car at the same time? It would blow up the system. So we're giving them notice. So when the chief does order these, they're going to be ready and they're going to be upgrading their grid and our grid at City Hall. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, let's move on to who's up next. Sorry. Commissioner Communications. Okay. Commissioner Law, do you want to start us off?
Nothing for me, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Borks?
Transition South Pasadena will be providing reusable 4th of July decorations again this year for 4 different businesses, kind of in the Meridian Mission area. And then, you know, talking about tree replacement and stuff, it's caught my attention. We have these great entrances into South Pasadena from Pasadena on the Orange Grove, Columbia entrance is pretty beautiful, and even the Fair Oaks, Columbia one, but the Fremont entrance, there's just like no trees at all. And it's, you know what I mean? Like if we're looking towards replacing trees, it would be really, they would be very welcome there. I just noticed that I walk by that a lot, and it would be, you know, nice to have that. It has a big, you know, Tree City USA sign up there, but like no trees at all. So just a thought there. And that's it for me.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have just 3 things I wanted to talk about a little bit tonight. First is there is, as I understand it, an organic waste ad hoc committee to talk about the organic waste requirements and the ordinance coming up and how Athens will be changing its operations. So I hope that that can get going soon, because we have end of the year deadline, and I think, you know, half of the year has virtually gone by at this point without a meeting of that group. RP, maybe if you could update the commission, and even if Athens isn't ready yet, maybe it would be a good idea for that committee to meet to kind of outline some ideas and things we'd like to see. And that could be, you know, a basis for discussion with Athens. Secondly, I wanted to talk about the budget just briefly. I was very pleased that 2 new positions were authorized in Public Works in the budget, as I understand it. And I think this will be a great help in things like, you know, making more progress on the Climate Action Plan and the Green Action Plan, which this commission is interested in. So I think that's going to be beneficial, probably lighten the workload for the staff a little bit too. So it should be a big boon to the city, I think, and also on transportation and infrastructure. And then finally, just it would be interesting to talk about the Measure W that was passed to capture more stormwater runoff. Not that we have a lot of stormwater runoff of late, but particularly with the drought, you know, to try to get some of that water into the ground for our trees. I think it would help. And as I understand it, there's supposed to be incentives for concrete, you know, permeable surface removal. And then, you know, there's the idea down at the Arroyo, the nature park, of creating a water catchment basin down there and water feature, you know, in the nature park. And it would be great if we could get something going on that too, you know, when the county begins to make the money available. So thank you very much.
So Commissioner Kelly, The watershed steering committee for the Upper LA River just voted on Thursday to move forward with their stormwater investment plan. And this will probably be coming to the council, sometime soon, because it just was announced to actually fund some of those projects along the Oreo Seco. That's only the first step of the funding decision. It actually has to move on to the Regional Oversight Committee and then to the LA County Board of Supervisors. But we're getting closer to actually having funding for the projects that you mentioned for this fiscal year.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Siegel.
Hi, nothing today, thanks.
Commissioner Hammond.
Well, I had a question on Mayor Pro Tem Cacciotti's, one of his, the excess on the budget and the tree planting. I was wondering, I don't know if maybe you could answer this, RP, but at one point the city had in place a watering, like a contract to water any of the new trees that are put in place. And I believe that ended at some point. And has that started back up, or is there something in place now or plan to be in place if we do a larger planting of trees? Because I know quite a few trees that were new had died off because of lack of care, if we implement something like that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure of any current watering procedures and all of that. I'm just not familiar with it, so I don't know what we have in place at the moment. I do know that eventually our goal is to have an urban forest management plan, which would include a full out plan of maintenance for all these new trees that we want to plant. I don't know currently what the procedures are. I wish Garrett was still on, he'd be able to answer that. But I can definitely look into that and answer that question at the next meeting if you'd like. And yeah, I'd be happy.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
So any maintenance plans for the. Okay.
Yeah, I know we had
Absolutely.
an education program out, and South Pass Beautiful took a big part in that too, with watering bags, but it's always been a big confusion of the responsibility, the care of any of the trees that are on that sidewalk parkway area for commercial as well as residential. So it would be great if there is a little bit extra in the budget to also fund the watering of them as well until they're established. That would be awesome. And then my only other commission communication is I'm also on that the ad hoc for the organic waste. I am definitely up for meeting before, even if we're not ready for Athens. I'd love to start brainstorming on different possibilities, ideas, hashing out some of the things with the fellow members, and just would love an update by the next meeting of kind of where everything's standing with that, in case there's anything we can do. And then I think one thing which I don't know if Madeline's gone, and she probably could talk about this more, but you could just give me a nod if you're gonna touch on it, but about Amber's plastic outreach, were you gonna? Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that one to her.
Yeah, I've got some stuff I'm gonna put up for that, so thank you, Michelle.
Awesome. Like to support some of the happenings that's going on, but I think that's it for me this time around. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Hammond. Okay, Vice Chair DeGiorgi, you are up.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. So for the first announcement, can you guys see my screen? Okay, so the the first announcement is starting June 26th. Our NREC student or youth liaison, Amber Chen, will be hosting free art classes at the Arlington Garden, starting from 10 a.m. and it goes to 11 a.m. It's to address the plastic crisis. They'll be making art projects out of plastic that's been collected by families in our community. So it's going to be a very interesting demonstration, and I really encourage people to sign up at Eventbrite. Just under Eventbrite, search plastics or plastic against plastic. Then there's one more announcement I have. It's related to the same theme. Okay, let me share my screen again. Here we are. Okay, and so then, and the next one will be hosted at, the other one was Arlington Garden, by the way. And this is at Remainders Pasadena, and it starts July 2nd. And the time is 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And you can still sign up at the same place, Eventbrite, Plastic Against Plastic. And please support the youth in our community. And that is all for my announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I just had one quick note about the electric blower webinar that's coming up, which is one of our upcoming events. I had sent it out to all my neighbors, and we have a whole neighborhood watch email chain. And if I would like to encourage all of my fellow commissioners, if you have like a neighborhood group or email group that you can forward that to, that would be great. I got some great responses from people. And specifically, we have one gardener in our community, in our neighborhood, who does a lot of the homes. And so we've discussed creating a fund for him. So just by reaching out to your neighbors, you can get some good things happening. So that was a bit of good news. And beyond that, I don't have anything else to comment on. So staff liaison. RP.
I believe Commissioner Hammond had something to add.
Yeah, I just had a question in regards to what Amy was just talking about, kind of the outreach aspect of it. I know we had spoken about in the last meeting about not being able to recommend or have a list through the city of different companies that are already electric that offer services to our community. But is there any way that if any of our commissioners know of some that we can share within our group to be able to help outreach just on our own? Because it is even like there was a posting of a while back, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, of somebody asking for recommendations on one of the Facebook city sites that's around for electric, and it was crickets because nobody knows. Like everyone was wanting to know of an option, but nobody had a good option to even recommend. So I would love it if even if in a small capacity like that we could have some that some of us here know about to be able to share. Would be great to get the ball rolling in that area too.
Well, Commissioner Hammond, are you referencing gardeners that are already using electric equipment? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can give a recommendation. Or actually, I think Mayor Pro Tem also may have a recommendation as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like people are really interested and want to know. So it would be great to figure out a way to get that to them.
If I may just add one quick one. Maybe that's something that South Pasadena Beautiful could share with their membership.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
a sticky situation for the city to recommend any
Yeah.
providers, landscape companies, and a lot of the mom and pop ones will not have that service yet. This is definitely going to be something that incentivizes it, but I do agree, like maybe even the Tool Lending Library could have recommendations, or South Pass Beautiful, or something not affiliated with the city, because I think they can't even recommend arborists, you know, if you have a tree that needs to be removed because of it's diseased or dying. So I think,
Yeah,
if I'm not correct, RP.
I think if you're going through South Pass Beautiful, that's kind of the safer route. Tool Lending Library is associated with the city, so that wouldn't work. I think, you know, if you're on Facebook and you personally know a recommendation and, you know, you want to say, hey, yes, I know so-and-so.
As a private citizen, of course.
Right, you know,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think
Or
that there should be
transitions could.
any issues
Yeah.
with that. As long as it's not, you know, I am a commissioner on natural resources, environmental, and I say, go with this guy. So, you know, clearly that's not something you would be able to do, but, you know, if you know, your neighbor asks you like, hey, who's your gardener? Then yes, by all means, you know, go ahead and share that information if you'd like.
I mean, I think transition could be another good Facebook page
Sure.
place to post an ongoing list. And it could just be updated as we hear of new, you know, vendors that are offering the service.
Yeah, no, I'll actually thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Hammond, because that's something that I can go ahead and post that information for our residents to have available for them.
Yeah, if you get it up there, I'll share it to I'll search and find the person who had the request, and we can update it on the other pages.
Perfect.
Okay, did we have any staff comments? I can't remember where
Yes.
we were. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I have some comments for you all. So since we're on the topic, I just wanted to update you all on the gas-powered leaf blower ordinance. So we have it on schedule to go to the City Council on July 7th. We did include your recommendation of having the burden on property owners rather than the gardeners and landscapers. So we had that go through our city attorney, and she provided that the language to clarify that. So you'll see that in the agenda that goes out for the July 7th meeting. As also recommended by you, we did include in the staff report that staff would work towards establishing a tool lending library if feasible. So July 7th is the date that it would go out. That would be a first hearing. It's considered a public hearing, and then it would come back. Right now we have it tentatively scheduled for the second hearing to be on July 21st. Also, in the same note, tomorrow we have our very first webinar on transitioning to electric landscaping equipment. So this will be the first of many. You know, if this goes into effect, we've got a year of some, you know, nonstop education for our gardeners and homeowners out there. So this will be the one that kind of kicks everything off. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be our first one, so we'll try to get some feedback on that, see what homeowners would like to see, what information they like more of, and then hopefully we can make them better and better as we move on. We're also looking into having the in-person demonstrations start this summer, so that is also coming up. Were there any other updates regarding the gas-powered leaf blower that I missed that someone may have had a question on? Okay, and then also just to update you all on the organics. So staff have been working on it for quite a while now, and we have been going back and forth with Athens and trying to figure out the rates and all of that. Athens has conducted waste characterization studies for us to give us the numbers and the percentages. I was literally going to send out a calendar invite like at the end of the week for the committee to convene and get those discussions going. So it's coming up. It's coming up soon. We're looking to hopefully have a plan of how we're going to incorporate the requirements of SB 1383 with our contract with Athens. We may or may not change the service type that we have with them. This is what the committee, the ad hoc committee would be discussing and kind of giving their advice and recommendation on how they think we should approach this. So our plan is to hopefully get that by late fall, so that we can have something in place January 1st, 2022, when SB 1383 goes into effect. So thank you for your patience. Keep an eye out for that email. It is coming soon. And we will be updating the commission every month with what the ad hoc committee has been working on. Other than that, that is all of my updates for the commission. Ted, was there anything that you would like to add?
No, I think I made some notes here about some of the questions we had, so we'll talk and hopefully have some updates for you all, those items. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair Jones.
Thank you. Before I move on to our final agenda item, I see that Mayor Pro Tem has his hand up. Did you want to add something?
Here's a question and maybe a recommendation if staff could come back at next meeting, RP or Ted, with regard to AB 1383, the organics. I know there's, I sit on I'm the chair now of the legislative committee at AQMD. And I know there's legislation going through, and I forget who's carrying it, to extend that to another year or so. Can you just check on what the status of that is, where it is, or if it's failed already? I haven't been able to keep up with it. I'm looking at other things that would maybe impact us in some way. Do we know?
Right, so I believe you're referring to SB 619. Unfortunately, it's gotten nowhere at this point. We have submitted on behalf of the city a letter of support for that to give us some kind of an extension or a good faith effort, portion for that to show that we're working towards it, towards compliance. But so far we've had no, unfortunately, nothing going through on 619 yet. But I will absolutely keep an eye on that one. And if we have any movement, I will provide an update to the commission.
Okay. Were you finished, Ted?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. So now moving on to our final agenda item, upcoming events. As mentioned previously, we have the Transitioning to Electric Landscaping webinar on June 23rd, which is tomorrow at 7 p.m. There's a flyer attached with more information and with the link. South Pass Beautiful is going to have a plant swap, the library, on June 26th. I believe that's the Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And there's also a flyer attached for that. There is a Celebrate National Pollinator Week coming up, or actually that's this week, sorry. The pollinators from June 21st to 27th, and that flyer is attached as well. LA County Smart Gardening webinars, as usual. You can find the different webinars on various dates with a link provided. And the Metropolitan Water District is offering free turf removal and native landscaping webinars, various dates as well. And the link can be found in the agenda packet. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our meeting. So at, let's see, 8:35, Unless there's anything else, I would like to adjourn this meeting. Do I need a motion to adjourn? Can't remember. Not technically. I mean, technically, yes, but we don't need to do that, do we?
You need to do a mic drop though.
Okay. Just dropped my phone. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Our next meeting will be July 27th at 7 p.m. I will not be here. So, Madeline, I hope you can take my place.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Okay, great, great. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so
Good night,
much.
everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Everyone.